Namaste, everyone. Nice to see you. So, this evening we're going to talk a little bit about this term that a lot of people use now. They talk about being spiritual but not religious. You familiar with this? And it's kind of like, okay, well, why are we going there? What is it that you're concerned about? Why do you think people feel the need to... I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that statement or anything right. I'm just making an observation. Why do people feel that they need to go there? Why do they need to make that kind of a statement? Yeah, what?
Possibly I've had some bad experience in the past with religion, with people's concept of religion.
Yeah. Well, religion's been getting a pretty bad rap for quite a while. And people like to sort of make that the whipping boy, you know, for all the ills of the world. And it's sort of like, well, the atheists didn't do too well either. Tens of millions of people were slaughtered under the banner of atheism, so that didn't work out too well. So it's kind of like, well, is there something else? I mean, these concerns that people have are quite often legitimate concerns. And people will ask the question, and you get it from both sides. You get people that sort of like have a negative connotation to the word religion. But then you've got people that come from a more religious background and they have a bit of a negative connotation on the word spiritual. You know that? You know, so you've got kind of like, is there a better understanding? Is there a middle ground somewhere where we can actually have a broader appreciation? The word spiritual means different things to different people. Have you noticed that or not? I mean, people often think of spiritual as spirits. You know, these things floating around that are going to cause me some harm or something. That's immediately what pops to some people's mind. And so even the term, you know, spiritual or spirituality is quite ill-defined. And it's quite ill-defined because of this lack of knowledge about what constitutes real spirituality. The foundation, the actual foundation of spirituality is the understanding and the appreciation that I, the person residing within this body, like when you look at me, you're looking at a body. But there is something animating, or someone animating this body. This spiritual entity, the one that is actually communicating with you, it's me, utilizing this body as a vehicle. My essence is that I am spirit. Materialism, on the other hand, is founded on the belief and understanding, or misunderstanding rather, that the body that I am wearing around is me. And therefore I am all the labels attached to it. I am young, I am old, I am a Kiwi, I'm an American, I'm an Aussie, I'm an Asian, I'm male, I am female, I am fat, I am thin, I am tall, I am short. No, you are none of those things. Those things are simply descriptions of the body that you have on, that you are wearing and using. This is the foundation for all spirituality. Anything that does not spring from this understanding is factually not spiritual. So people think about disembodied beings like ghosts or something as being spirits. No, that's not a spirit. That's a subtle, another type of subtle body being driven or motive. It's somebody else is driving that kind of subtle body around. But just because I can't see something, it doesn't make it spiritual. In relation to the world, if I am totally absorbed in that which is material, well, let me step back a little bit. Sometimes people are like, we have this attraction for beauty, don't we? We like to see beautiful things. And we often look at nature as being a beautiful manifestation, a majestic and beautiful manifestation. And we feel that somehow being connected to that is also spiritual. So I'm going to be the bummer guy and say, well, no, that's not actually spiritual either. It is the material world. It is a material manifestation. But what's going on is that when we see anything beautiful or majestic, without being aware, what's happening is we're being touched. We are being inspired to seek something greater than ourselves, something infinitely more beautiful, something that is actually peaceful, something that is actually truly wonderful. So what's happening is there is this, and I will call it a spiritual motivation. But if we simply look at the world per se, the world or nature is not inherently spiritual. So it is really important, if we are going to develop a spiritual outlook on life, that we learn to see things accurately and correctly. There's one beautiful Vedic scripture. It's one of the Upanishads. It's called the Sri Ishopanishad. And it's very short. It's only got 18 verses. And in one of those verses, it describes that if a person wants to become liberated from all suffering, from all material entanglement, it is absolutely necessary to cultivate and acquire knowledge of that which is material and that which is spiritual side by side. We need to do this because of our predicament, our situation. We are spiritual beings trapped inside material bodies. That is a reality. And the purpose and objective of life is to find what is the real purpose behind this, and how do I attain that state of eternal happiness that I actually seek. I'm so busy trying to make this world my home, trying to build the perfect, what is actually spiritual, a place for shelter, a place of love, a place of peace and compassion, a place of infinite joy and happiness. This is what I seek. I mean, all of the fairy tales, all of the kids' stories, how do they usually end? What's the last line? And they lived happily ever after. Why do they say that? They say that because that is the actual desire of all people. If we understand that real spirituality is based upon my understanding and appreciating that I am a spiritual being, then spiritual life means coming to discover my nature, my purpose, and what is it that's most natural for me, the spiritual being, to be doing. Unfortunately, we will find that in this world, many people that participate in religious undertaking do so without any real spiritual understanding. And because there is not a spiritual understanding, when they turn to God, and we'll go there. When they turn to God, it's about, God, do this for me. And who is the me? The me is this body, this immediate family that I'm connected with. It's to do with my material circumstance. It's like, please, that big guy up there, do some good stuff for me. Please help me. Do things for me. And from a spiritual perspective, this is like not a really healthy relationship. Because I'm trying to get someone to serve me. I'm trying to get someone to do stuff for me, like I am the center of everything. I have lived my life thinking that I am like the center of the universe. It's all about me. People boldly admit it. Yes, it's all about me. I'm sorry, it's not. It's not all about you. We are all equally brothers and sisters. No one single person should be or is higher than another. If we are all equal, then surely we're all entitled to the same. If I make my life all about me, what I'm actually doing is creating disharmony in my life. I'm going to be living a life that is out of kilter. Since we brought up the big G word, God, I don't know, it's just like this aversion to talking about God. Everybody's on such a panic about it. Nobody wants to mention it. And it's largely because many people do have limited understandings and limited appreciation of what this word means. When I was a kid growing up, I was raised as a am I allowed to talk about this stuff? Okay. I was raised as a Catholic, and I was like really, I wanted to find out what life was really for and all about. But I felt that in questioning, my questions weren't really answered. And the concept that I was taught of what God is was like actually very limited and not incredibly wonderful. It was like this guy he's kind and loving, but if you don't do what he wants, oh my God, you're going to get it big time. You're going to be fried forever. And that just didn't sit very well with me, even as a young child. It was like, I wouldn't do that to anyone. I wouldn't do that. Just because I didn't like someone, that I would put them into a situation where they're going to suffer unlimitedly forever and ever and ever. I just wouldn't do that. And I could not believe as a child that if God did exist, his sense of love and caring and sympathy and mercy and justice would be lower than mine. If he did exist, it must be higher. And what you're telling me, I'm sorry, I'm not buying that. There's got to be something else going on. It took me a long time. Like in the beginning, I became very exposed through studying Ashtanga Yoga to the concept or the feature of God as being a vast ocean of light and love and happiness. And my first encounter with that idea and that experience was like, oh my God, this is wonderful. And again, I'm actually thinking from a limited perspective. I am thinking in, like, if I can use the term, like human or limited terms. I had no real understanding of what ultimately spirituality was. And so this idea of, if I look at this vastness of the sky compared to a guy standing there, oh yeah, the sky looks like a much bigger deal. It's much vaster, it's much more encompassing. The person standing there is very limited and defective. All people that I knew were defective. But after being exposed to deep yoga philosophy and thought, Vedic philosophy and thought, where they teach us that actually God, if we can use this word, or if you want to refer to a higher power, something that is greater than me, actually exists and can be experienced in three main features. One of them is as this vast ocean of energy. Another one is this all-pervading feature where he resides within the heart of all living beings. In the yoga terminology, this is called Paramatma, which means the supreme soul. And then in a third aspect, who is known as Bhagavan. Bhagavan means to possess all opulence, such as beauty, power, fame, all opulence in the highest and unlimited degree. So it was like, oh my God, so it's not just an either-or situation. Depending on where a person is at in their journey, it is possible for people to relate to God or this higher power through either or any of these features. Each of them delivers a different type of experience. And that's a whole nother subject that maybe we can get into. Is this too philosophical? Huh? No? Okay. Is it interesting?
Yes.
Yeah? So, these three aspects of this higher power or God are also experienced, connected to my own self-realization. If a person is able to truly realize, experience, and realize their essence as being spiritual. In that state, one does not necessarily seek or does not have an intimate relationship with God. The yogis, and the majority of yogis, their practice was not to focus on this impersonal feature of God. It was to focus upon what is described as the Lord within your own heart. This Lord is not you, it is your friend and companion. And through meditation and deep spiritual experience, one could have what was called Paramatma realization, where they become intimately connected with this feature of the Supreme, known as the Lord within our own heart. In this condition, one is instantly made aware. Number one, I am not supreme. Unfortunately, this idea that I am supreme, it's all about me, I can have my own reality, whatever is true for me is true. These kind of ideas actually don't fit into the real yoga or Vedic philosophy. They are considered deficient ideas. When a person comes to the platform of Bhagavan realization, this is where they have the profound experience of an awakening of a form of love that is so deep and profound that your entire existence is eternally transformed. Everything will change to such a degree that this becomes everything to you. So this is a big subject. And you can see, I think, I've just kind of walked you through a few different things. You can see from this, perhaps you will get some idea that when we use terms like materialism, when we use terms like spirituality, when we even refer to God, it is not like anything that most people have had experience with, but it is something that most people will feel innately comfortable with and drawn to. If you take to a spiritual path, one does not have to give up or forego any religion that they may feel connected to or affiliated with. But what will happen with true spiritual awakening, one will become more profoundly connected with the true essence of most of the religions that exist in the world. But you don't need a religion, or you can feel that you very much need it. Either way, it's not going to make any difference to your ability to use this spiritual sound and to engage in a process that brings about true self-realization and the experience and connectedness with this ultimate feature, which we sometimes call God, or we may describe in so many different ways. Okay? So I'm going to stop there. Anybody have a question? Was this a little overwhelming, or no, it's okay, it's all good, okay. I'm still trying to get familiar with the Kiwis, and I've been away so long. So thank you very much. Oh yes, you have a question. Yeah.
A person has a religious faith. There's a lot of pressure from within that faith to embrace like a practice which we engage in, which is mantra meditation. you know, how can a person be encouraged that by doing this they're not going to be displeasing God or displeasing the dimension which they
I'll give you one example. When I was living in the Philippines, I developed a very close friendship with a woman who was a Catholic nun. The reason I became close to her, because her cousin was dying, and I had helped her through that experience of death. We spent like a year in preparation for it and discussed what she needed to do, and she grew so tremendously in her understanding that her death was absolutely mind-blowing. It was so beautiful. I mean, it was so beautiful. All her relatives who were there when she died, they were stunned at how wonderful it was. And her cousin was not just a nun, but she was the head of one of the religious orders in the Philippines called the Good Shepherd. And so she had been, for about 6 months or more prior to the death of her cousin, had been also attending these classes and the meditation that we're doing with her cousin. And she became so profoundly moved. She told me, you know, for 64 years now, I have dedicated my life to serving others, but I realize I have not done enough to cultivate my own personal relationship with God. And by engaging in this process, she said, I don't feel that I am betraying anything that I am following. I don't feel like I am betraying my religion or the church or anything. She said, I've come to understand that by this process, I will truly be able to come to love God, not just theoretically, but to have that experience. And so for her, it was quite an awakening. And so she would use her rosary beads to both do mantra meditation and to say the rosary. In the chapel with other nuns, she would play the organ and she'd sing these spiritual sounds along with other hymns and everything. And she felt there was no conflict whatsoever. And that is the reality. People should not feel conflicted. You know, if we are conflicted, it means we don't have a very mature understanding of even the religious faith that we are adhering to. If we have an actual deep understanding, then I don't fear anything. And if something helps me towards that goal, which she said that Jesus Christ's first and foremost commandment was to love the Lord thy God with your whole heart, mind, and soul or being. And she could not find any way to actually do that. But by engaging in this process, she began to experience that now this was going to be a reality for her. So she felt that she was directed, she had been inspired to come into contact, and it was transforming her life. So when people actually develop a good understanding of what they're doing, what their religious practices are, and they can connect with someone that is genuinely on a spiritual path and can be of help to them, there is no conflict, there is nothing to worry about, everything is fine.
But for those that they're surrounded by, they might appear that this person has become heretic.
Yeah, well, I mean, her perception was it's like you know a tree by its fruit.
Yeah.
Have you come to the perfect platform of love for God? How did you come there? How is it manifesting? What is it to you? And it's just like a big blank. Whereas she was having a uniquely different experience. So it really didn't matter. But because of her mature understanding and very compassionate approach, people were okay with it. People around her, they were all good. Okay?
I was just going to say, my mother I was raised as a Catholic, but then my mother became a Baha'i, and she was a Buddhist for a while. But it's all encompassed, the Krishna, Zoroaster, Muhammad, Jesus. And so that conflict, where all prophets from God all came to bring peace.
You know, let me just say this. If you can change a religion, it is not an eternal feature. If I can be an Anglican or a Catholic and then become a Buddhist, if I can change from a Buddhist to a Hindu, if I can change from a Hindu to a Muslim, what I am doing is looking for answers and seeking an intimacy. The real term that we use to describe what we are doing, it is called Sanatan Dharma. Sanatan means eternal, and Dharma actually means in this our eternal nature. So whether a person is this religion or changes to this religion or changes to another religion, what they are bringing with them all the time is their own spiritual identity as a spiritual being, and the fact that I have a yearning for this connection with God or some higher force or being or whatever. That is part of our eternal nature. And what we are doing is a process for awakening our own spiritual nature, and how we choose to connect that with our life and how we are living, and whether we want to be affiliated with a particular religious process or not is not the main focus. That's how we will begin to apply things, this personal spiritual awakening. Okay? Thank you very much. So we will... You like this stuff? I do too. It's so awesome. And you know what? We're just scratching the surface, which is a bit of a drag. But step by step,